If you run a small or mid-sized business, working capital is the single number that decides whether you can make payroll next month, whether you can pay a supplier on time, and whether you can say yes to a growth opportunity when it shows up. Finance people call it the lifeblood of the organization, and that is not just a nice turn of phrase. Just like blood carries oxygen to your organs, working capital carries liquidity to every part of your operations. In this video, we are going to break down what working capital actually is, how to read it, and what to do when it is working against you instead of for you. Here is why this topic deserves your attention right now. During the recent pandemic era, the amount of cash tied up in working capital globally reached $5.5 trillion. That is not money that was lost. It is money that got trapped inside operations, unable to be used for investment, dividends, or an emergency buffer. Inside the S&P 1500 alone, trapped liquidity is estimated at $707 billion, a 40% increase from before the pandemic. If large public companies are struggling with this, smaller businesses feel it even more acutely because they do not have the same access to cheap external financing. Getting working capital right is not just about avoiding disaster. It actively pays off in three ways. First, it stabilizes your cash flow so suppliers and employees get paid on time and you avoid late fees and reputational damage. Second, it puts more cash in your hands, which means you can capture volume discounts or early payment incentives from your own vendors. Third, and this is the one owners underestimate, it gives you dry powder. When a real growth opportunity appears, whether that is expanding into a new market or upgrading a piece of equipment, a healthy working capital position is what lets you actually say yes. Before we go further, one mindset shift matters more than any formula. There is no universal target for working capital that applies to every business. A grocery chain and a pharmaceutical manufacturer will have wildly different healthy ranges, and we will get into exactly why later in this video. For now, hold on to this idea: you are not chasing a fixed number, you are managing a moving target. Strategically, working capital is your margin of safety between what you can turn into cash quickly and what you owe soon. The formula is simple. Working capital equals current assets minus current liabilities. This single number gives you a point-in-time snapshot of whether your business can cover its obligations over the next 12 months. On the asset side, you have cash inventory and accounts receivable, which is money customers owe you for credit sales. On the liability side, you have accounts payable, which is what you owe suppliers, short-term debts due within a year, and deferred revenue, which we will unpack next because it trips up more business owners than any other line item. This is one of the most common mistakes SME owners make. Under the accounting standards for private enterprises, deferred revenue is a liability, not income. If a customer pays you upfront but you have not delivered the good or service yet, that cash sitting in your bank account is a commitment you still owe, not revenue you have earned. Recording it as income too early inflates your current year earnings and hides a future obligation from anyone reading your balance sheet, including yourself. Deferred revenue gets more complex when a single contract bundles more than one deliverable. This is called a multi-element arrangement, and it shows up constantly in technology and professional services businesses. Say a software firm sells a license worth $8,000 on its own, bundled with a year of support worth $4,000 on its own, for a combined contract price of $10,000. The correct approach is to allocate that $10,000 proportionally based on each item's standalone value. The software portion gets recognized immediately as revenue once delivered. The support portion becomes deferred revenue and releases gradually month by month across the year it covers. Now that we know what feeds into the formula, what does the result actually tell you? Positive working capital means current assets exceed current liabilities, and for most SMEs, that is the hallmark of financial stability. It means you can cover your obligations without leaning on expensive emergency credit. Negative working capital means current liabilities exceed current assets, and for a typical SME, that is a red flag. If what customers owe you is consistently smaller than what you owe suppliers, you are effectively insolvent in the short term, and that is the most common precursor to bankruptcy. There is one important exception to that rule, and it is worth understanding so you do not misapply it to your own business. Retail giants like Amazon and Walmart deliberately run negative working capital. They collect cash from customers immediately at the point of sale, but they pay their own suppliers on 60 or 90-day terms. That gap creates a float, essentially interest-free capital that funds their growth. Unless you have that same buyer power and that same inventory turnover, treat negative working capital as a warning sign, not a strategy to copy. Here is a distinction that catches even experienced owners off guard. Working capital is a snapshot taken at a single point in time. Cash flow is a movie showing how money actually moves in and out over a period. A business can look profitable on paper and still fail because of a timing gap, cash trapped in slow-moving inventory, or an unpaid invoice quietly draining the business. And that trapped cash has a real measurable cost. In today's higher interest rate environment, for every $1 million in inventory you carry, a 2% rate increase adds roughly $20,000 in annual carrying costs. That number never shows up on a standard profit and loss statement, but it absolutely erodes your actual wealth. The single most important metric for evaluating operational liquidity is the cash conversion cycle, or CCC. It measures how many days it takes for $1 spent on inventory to come all the way back to you as a dollar collected from a customer. The formula has 3 parts. Days inventory outstanding measures how long inventory sits in the warehouse before it sells. Days sales outstanding measures how long it takes to collect payment after a sale is made. Days payable outstanding measures how long you take to pay your own suppliers. You add the first 2 and subtract the third to get your cash conversion cycle. A high days inventory outstanding signals overstocking, or what treasury teams call zombie inventory, sitting at risk of going obsolete. A rising days sales outstanding delays your cash inflows and forces you to fund your own receivables out of pocket. And while a longer days payable outstanding preserves your cash, push it too far and you damage supplier relationships and end up with stricter credit terms. The goal across all 3 is the same: shrink the cycle wherever you safely can. To measure how efficiently you are deploying your capital, use the working capital turnover ratio, net sales divided by working capital. A high ratio generally signals efficient management, but there is a danger zone. An extremely high ratio can mean you are operating with a dangerously low capital cushion. High sales with almost no buffer means a single supply chain hiccup or one late payment from a major client could seize up the entire business. On the other end, a low ratio suggests the business is bloated, tying up too much capital to generate too few sales, which usually points to poor inventory management or operational inefficiency. Let's put the formula to work with a real example. Eastern Company reports total sales of $500,000 with returns of $80,000, giving net sales of $420,000. Its current assets are $100,000 and current liabilities are $40,000, giving working capital of $60,000. Divide net sales by working capital and you get a turnover ratio of 7. While this example uses dollars, that result, 7, is a universal coefficient. It means that for every single unit of currency working inside the business, the company generates 7 units in net sales. Mid-sized businesses run into a specific complexity trap: intricate operations, limited specialized treasury staff, and no advanced forecasting technology. That combination often leads to a kind of risk aversion where finance teams get paralyzed by the sheer number of variables to track. 6 tactics consistently break that cycle. Accelerate collections with early payment discounts and digital invoicing. Tighten payables by paying suppliers exactly when due, never early and never late. Reduce operating costs, especially watching for subscription creep in your software stack. Build a rolling 13-week cash flow forecast so you are never flying blind. Manage inventory actively, using ABC analysis to find and liquidate zombie stock that has not moved in 90 days. And finally, use financing tools like lines of credit or invoice financing strategically as planned choices rather than acts of desperation. One last piece of context before we wrap up: a good cash conversion cycle in one industry can be a failure in another, so benchmark against your own sector, not a generic average. Food and fast-moving consumer goods retailers typically run very low or even negative cycles because perishable inventory moves fast and customers pay immediately at checkout. Manufacturing businesses run moderate to high cycles because lengthy production runs and raw material lead times naturally trap capital longer. Pharmaceutical and electronics companies run the highest cycles of all: pharma because of decade-long development and regulatory timelines, and electronics because of complex global supply chains with long lead times. Let's bring this together into something you can act on immediately. First, benchmark your performance against your peers, not just against your own history. If your competitors collect in 30 days and you are sitting at 45, you are essentially giving your customers a free loan out of your own pocket. Second, monitor your cash conversion cycle regularly so you always know how long it takes a dollar to travel through your business and come back. Third, audit your technology. If you are managing $10 million or more in revenue on spreadsheets, that lack of visibility is likely costing you 1 to 2% in unnecessary annual carrying costs. A few quick answers to questions we hear often. Gross working capital is simply the total of your current assets. Net working capital is what remains after subtracting current liabilities, and that is the true measure of what you actually have available. Rapid growth is cash hungry. As sales rise, you have to spend cash on inventory and support higher receivables before the returns come in, and growth without a working capital plan is a common path to what people call a successful bankruptcy. Rising interest rates increase the carrying cost of every dollar trapped in inventory or unpaid invoices. And finally, accounts receivable and deferred revenue sit on opposite ends of the same timeline. Receivable means the work is done, but the cash has not arrived. Deferred revenue means the cash has arrived, but the work is not done yet. Working capital management is not a once-a-year exercise. It is a discipline that compounds. Get it right, and you reduce your borrowing costs, improve your credit standing, and give yourself the flexibility to grow on your own terms. Start this week. Pull your current assets and current liabilities, calculate your cash conversion cycle, and compare it honestly against your industry peers. That single exercise will tell you more about the health of your business than almost any other number on your balance sheet. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.